Good morning and welcome to another edition of Badass Marketing. I am joined by the ever so lovely Angela Dunz. Angela, how are you this morning?
I'm good. Yeah, I could do with a little less of the tree pollen and the effects of that, but it's Friday and I'm doing great.
Yeah, I'm suffering from the same, I believe, but we will muscle
It
through.
makes your voice sound just that deeper and more dramatic.
Exactly. Yeah, I was going for the Lauren Bacall, you know what I mean?
Oh my gosh. I think you reached it. Yeah, you went right past Janis Joplin and straight to Lauren Bacall.
Exactly, exactly. So my understanding is, if memory serves me correct, and it never does, but we're talking about onboarding today.
We are.
Oh,
And
cool.
I love this topic because number one, it means that you just got a client. Number two, it is an opportunity for so much more than to solve somebody's problems and work with them. Because really, you want to start at the beginning of the onboarding process, really creating a lifelong client. And once
So
you have
where do we
good,
begin? Tell me
um,
where we.
well, that's a great question. Let's talk about the benefits of doing a really great job of onboarding. So, for you, your onboarding is going to be a little bit different than mine is. So, for you, what is the benefit of really good onboarding?
Well, one of the benefits for a really good onboarding, and especially if we use it in combination with creating videos, is a lot of what we do is repetitive. So we can show you how to do something. 5 minutes after we show you, you will likely forget, which is fine. We do this every day, so we're pretty used to it. But by walking you through the process and then sending you the follow-up video, you have something to refer back to. It's also pretty amazing that when you watch these videos that you're like, oh, I forgot about that, because we're very much in the moment when we're having a conversation and recording a video. So, 5 minutes later, we're on to another topic and another subject. So, our short-term memory seems to forget those pieces. So, having these tools to refer back to, rather than waiting for us to call you or scheduling a meeting where we are billing you by the hour, you have a tool and a resource that you can go back to, listen to the meeting, listen to the suggestions, and see if you can work through some of those things as you go through the learning curve.
And so, do you suggest that your clients put those videos in a specific spot so that it's really easy for them to refer to when they need them?
Yeah, that's probably too much responsibility for our clients. So what we do is we do that, and then we provide, and then it's typically a Google Drive, and then we'll provide them the link. So we recommend they save the links, or save the emails in a place that they can find them in the future. But they don't even have to store the videos; they just have to find the link to go back and watch the video again in the cloud.
That's fantastic. For me, it's a little bit different situation. And I think that, people come to me rather frustrated and fearful of LinkedIn to begin with. It's not a happy topic for most of my clients. And so I think one of the things that onboarding does for me is that it really sets up expectations. I'm going to be there for you. I've got resources for all of this, and I'm going to walk you through every step the whole way. You got this. Don't worry. And I think that that is one of the most instilling confidence in the process, I think is a really big part of onboarding for me.
Yeah, because we have a client, and the client is a bookkeeper slash accountant, and they have a lot of recurring uh, activities. So they'll have monthly closes, they have payroll, they have those types of things. So what we do is we create, and we do this actually in the form of a wiki. We create like all these processes, we record them, and then if someone's like, oh, how do I do an ACH? You can go look, do a search, and it'll pull up like 4 or 5 videos around ACHs, and therefore, that's an online resource in the cloud available from any device. And a lot of these things, again, they're monthly, they're going to be repetitive. Excuse me. So you don't want to call the bookkeeper every month like I forgot how to do that. You know what I mean? Some people won't because they feel embarrassed because they didn't remember or they don't want to be on the clock, all those types of things. So we help people create those resources so that if you want to remember how to do ACHs, there's 5 videos to show you different aspects of it.
That's awesome. Yeah, really making, I think convenience and ease of finding things and ease of doing things is a big piece of the whole onboarding process. If people
And
get
it's both
frustrated,
internal and external. So, we have the same thing when we have a new person join the staff where, we could sit down with them, take time away from doing other tasks. And not that we don't spend time with new hires, but, rather than that, we're like, okay, here's how we do this. Watch this video, watch that. Like, so a lot of the resources that, how we do things, order our processes, we will record those. So even internally, staff can go back and like if you haven't done it in a while or if you're new, we have those resources available as well. The cloud's pretty much free or very inexpensive, so we can collect loads and loads of videos and data and they just have it readily available anytime they want in real time, live, that type of thing. So if they're doing something at 2 o'clock in the morning, the client, obviously we're not going to be in the office. The client still has access to these types of resources.
that's great. And another thing that produces is consistency. And boy, does that make things much easier. Instead of things getting screwed up, they're done consistently the same way. And then you can figure out if something went wrong, where was the point where it went wrong?
And usually it's just like you missed one little step. It's not a huge step, but it's enough to change the outcome. So so it's like, oh, by the way, when you're watching the video, like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. So it's an easy way to figure out and troubleshoot without like having to call someone who's like, yeah, you left this out. Like, oh, that's obvious. So and you can search, you can fast forward to the sections that you want. I mean, there's nothing worse than calling support and then have them read a script like, have you turned on your computer? It's like, I'm talking to you, so obviously I have, right?
And we just talked about customer
Right.
service and how
It's still
awful
fresh,
that
believe me, it's
is.
painful and fresh. I'm convinced that not to go back to last week's conversation, but I'm still convinced that customer service is such a huge differentiator because it's
Yes.
so rare. It really, I continue to have the same problems with the same customer service folks that we've been trying to work with for our clients, and it doesn't get better, and it's just a genuinely painful experience. And all we're trying to do is to use their product. And they get a revenue share when we do use the product, so it behooves them to do to help us. It's one of those like win-win. Everybody actually does well if this actually works, but it doesn't work, so we're not making money, they're not making money, and and they can't provide support, so it is what
So
it
I
is.
have a question for you, Mike. Would you consider onboarding as part of customer service?
I do. I mean, because I actually, in the one scenario that I've been bitching and moaning about, there was no onboarding, right? So
Yes.
it was just a standard, here's what you get. And the expectation, we thought we were getting something different. The expectation was we ended up with something that, not to our liking. And if we had gone through an onboarding process, we either would have had them tweak the platform to accommodate some of our needs, or realized very quickly this is the wrong platform for us. But now we're on the platform, we're invested in this platform, and now we're trying to fix it after the fact, and that's very difficult. So
Oh,
had we had
oh,
some onboarding, we either were to quit early, and found something else, or if they had been receptive to some of our feedback and some of the things that we needed, we would have avoided the problems that we're currently having. So onboarding is huge. Like, if you don't get it right from the beginning, it doesn't get better. It just doesn't. Like
no.
you went right from the start, and everyone's life will be easier. At least I think so.
Well, and the other piece of that question is, for me, I really consider the whole onboarding process is it's relationship building. It's kind of like a honeymoon period, and you really want things to go well. Of course, there's going to be things that go south, but it depends on how far south they go. And, if you've already set up that expectation that you're going to be there to help, um, or you've set up that expectation that you're on your own.
Yeah, and yeah, at least we had
It's
that
a
expectation, right? Yeah.
right, but it's a different kind of relationship altogether. So would you consider onboarding a relationship process?
Absolutely. I mean, it's because it's really about getting it right from the beginning. And this is going to make first of all, we're setting the ground rules. And if you're seeing something in the ground rules at the beginning that you don't like, and if in our scenario, if we had had a dialogue with the company and they said, yeah, we're not going to do that, that's fine, because we would have moved on. We would have found another platform,
Right.
we would have found another workaround. But here we are, we're 3 months later, and we're just coming to that realization. Whereas if I had come to that realization before I did a whole bunch of data entry on behalf of the client, I might have gone in a different direction. And so I do think that's important. I think also that um, the learning curve and the inevitability of something going wrong. It's like things break. That's just the way it is. That's fine. I don't have a problem with things not working. What I have a problem with is how you choose to respond to that, right? If you acknowledged, our systems are slow or overloaded, take Chat GPT, for instance, right? And this is a system that clearly got overloaded immediately, right? But they told you
Yes.
that, and they
Yes.
set those expectations. They said, what? Everybody wants onto this thing, and it's killing our servers. And you're gonna, if you want this, you're gonna have to wait. But they set that expectation almost immediately. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's part of doing Chat GPT. But if they had just ignored it, and I'm just looking at a screen where something's spinning, you know, I'm just like, I'm losing my mind, right? But
Uh,
they set that expectation very clearly. It was clear that like this system wasn't ready for prime time. You know what I mean? They were working on it, they were acknowledging it, and I didn't find it a horrible experience. I still think it's a great product, and I was willing to go through that sort of curve, or that whatever they were working on to fix the bandwidth issue. But they were telling me up front, there's a problem. We know there's a problem. We're working on it. And as long as I can get that kind of feedback, as a rule, I'm pretty good about being patient. Most people won't
yes.
believe I just said that, but yeah, as a rule, I'm pretty good about, as long as you keep me in the loop. You know what I
Yes.
mean? That's all
Communication
I
is,
ask is, tell me what's going on. Because we have problems, and like we do stuff and the customer calls us up and like, what the hell? And we're like, oh, yeah, I see that. And and then we will, tell them what's going on, what we're doing to fix it, whether we can fix it. But we will convey to them. And this goes back to either last week or the week before about like communication is key. You know,
yeah,
I'm not going to lose my mind over something that's not working if you're communicating with me and I feel that we're making progress. As
right.
long as I feel like you're being honest with me and that, you are generally trying to resolve it or address it, I'm like, okay, fine. But, typically what we have is they just ignore the inquiry and, and don't do anything. So we don't know if they're working on it. We don't know if they're ignoring us. We don't know if we're number
Yes.
3,000 in the queue. We just don't know. And that's what ends up becoming frustrating. And
Right.
that is what undermines the relationship.
And I don't think I'm alone in this, but there's nothing that makes me angrier than just not knowing. That's
Yeah,
where
well,
you
I
get
think
to,
things that makes me angrier is, when I get a call center, and they are asking me questions that are beyond obvious, and they're not providing any support. Like, I mean, I'm not blaming the call center. They have a script, they do what they do, but that's not customer service. And I don't fault the people working in the call center. I fault the companies that outsource customer service to a call center, that and then not give them any capabilities to
ability.
fix things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the call center has to be equally as frustrated having to deal with me as I am dealing with them, because I'm frustrated, I'm annoyed, I'm angry, and they can't do anything about it. And that then sort of spirals because the less they can do, the angrier I get, and where
And
that
they're
goes.
helpless. They're completely helpless to
They're
do anything
helpless,
about this
but
situation.
and in my mind, that's the problem with the company. Like the company has chosen
Right.
to save money by outsourcing and not providing realistic support. And I believe that if they actually did provide support, they'd actually make more money because more people would use the product. I'm not going to recommend this product to anybody. I'm not going to, I have other clients. I'm not going to bring them on this platform because it's been such a nightmare. And I do have other clients that are looking for a similar platform. And I'm like, yeah, don't even touch that one. That one sucks. So the money they think they're saving by outsourcing to, a call center, I would argue that they're actually losing money because instead of providing
Yeah.
support, which would mean I'd want to use their product even more, they've got me frustrated and I'm looking for an alternative. I'm not onboarding any new clients onto that platform. I'm not adding any new products onto that platform, which they do a revenue share on. So, they're saving money on the call center, and I'm telling you, they're losing money on the big picture.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Penny wise and dollar foolish.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's just say that for you, somebody, one of your clients has a problem. They let you know about it, whether it's email or, a voicemail or a text, whatever. What is your first response? What is your preferred method to get a hold of a client and let them know you're working on it? Do you pick up the phone? Do you send an email?
Nobody
What?
picks up the phone. It depends on the client, but most of our client, like I would say today, and this is relatively recent, but most of our clients, we are texting back and forth, right? Because it's a pretty quick way to get a hold of us.
Yes.
Because not that I would ever do it with you, but with other phone calls, I will respond to texts. Well, you know what I mean. Which I can't pick up the phone and call while I'm on the middle of something else, but I can respond to a text. But I never do it with you. But so for us, it's usually for us it's a text, and whether that's WhatsApp or whether it's an SMS, but it's some sort of text messaging is the one. If it's a huge problem or if it's something big, depending on where they are, we have some clients who are local. So like, if it's something blowing up, and I'll go over and I'll just like show up and like, hey, what's going on? Show me, you know what I mean? So but that is obviously limited geographically. We have the benefit that some of our
Right.
clients are up the block from us,
Yes.
you know what I mean? So, we show up on a regular basis. But if it's a serious matter, yeah, we'll pick up the phone or some sort of, we'll call them because, but I'd say 80% of the back and forth these days for us is text.
And that's pretty efficient. Now, is that an expectation that's set up when you start working with the client? I mean, I know a lot of your clients are long-term clients and these things evolve over time. But if you had a new client, is that an expectation? If something goes wrong, text us and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you have to figure out is what your client's preferred communication platform is, right? So, we have a bunch of different
Yes.
clients. I have one client, and this doesn't necessarily thrill me, but it is what it is, and that's what they want. They like Teams, right? Microsoft Teams. So our entire communication is on Microsoft Teams. It keeps a record of it. It's an ability for various team members to know what's going on. So all of but this was, they established this. So they
Yes.
said, we want to be on Teams and we want all the communication to be on Teams. Other clients are texts. I have some older clients that I think we email. It's very rare that I talk to someone on the phone these days. But we email, and then a lot of our meetings are Zoom meetings as well. But the client almost always kind of sets the platform, where they want to be communicated with, and we try to accommodate them when we can. It's just that the newer clients tend to be more tech savvy, and then they tend to text, and they tend to be on
Right.
WhatsApp and all that kind of stuff. So, but some of our older clients they probably email, you know what I mean? And a
Yes.
lot of our clients, what they do is they get a notice that something's not working via email from a system, and they just forward the email to us and like, can you take care of
Right.
this? And yeah, so like they just forward the email. They read it enough to realize something's broken, but they don't get into it, and they just like, here, can you go do this? I'm like, yay, sure, we
Which
can
is
take
great.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I'm an introvert, so preferred communication method to me is something that's really important, and that you're flexible and accommodating and you set that stuff up from the get-go. That's fantastic.
Well,
My
the other thing
onboard,
too that I have found, because I can be reactionary when I'm having a dialogue with somebody if it's not going well, and the chat slash text tends to mitigate that to some degree, right? Because there is no, your personality is not getting in there. Your frustration, unless you're typing really hard in all caps, so pretty much what I've found, especially I know if it's going to be difficult, is I'll choose to chat through the problem, because it takes a lot of the emotion out of it, versus like if we're on the phone, it might get heated. So that's
right?
another advantage of chat, is it tends to keep things on an even keel.
Yes, yeah, and I would agree with you 100% there. If you take a minute to think before you send a text, some of the words and emotions can
I've
come.
typed the meanest text in the world. They just don't convey it. I'm like losing my mind. So that's like, I mean, that's sort of my saving grace is, even though I'm mad texting, it comes off okay. You know what I mean? So, you know, yeah. So like I said, especially like, because when I know I'm going to call customer support and I know it's going to be a bad call, like I'll do it via chat because I know I'm going to get frustrated. And rather than, have things escalate just because I'm cranky, I'd rather work through whatever it is that, is causing the problem.
Right. Well, and the nature of our businesses are a little bit different. For you, it's a lot of maintenance, and there's a lot of different moving parts that can go wrong. And
Well, because
most
we're
of the
on a
time,
lot of
it's going
different
to,
platforms and we're beholden to these platforms, which for the most part are not particularly responsive to, inquiries.
well, and it involves commerce in many cases. So, response time is really important. For me, it's much more high touch. It's much more personal. So generally, if somebody's really frustrated, I just sent them a banner to put into their LinkedIn profile and they
Yeah.
can't figure out how to do it. I'll if I don't have time to get on a Zoom call with them and walk them through it myself,
Yeah.
what I'm going to do is send them a Loom, and Loom has been a saving grace for me. Sending a Loom video, and being really calm in that moment and walking them through it. And sometimes it takes 2 minutes. 2 minutes to put together a Loom video and send that.
Yeah.
My clients love that feature.
Yeah, I mean, most of our clients are happy if they don't have to deal with us because, you know what I mean? Like, if
Right.
everything's working, they don't talk to us. So that, the best case scenario is that they don't, we don't interact with them. And, so, like I have a client that we've had, for like 15 years, I think. And, we probably, she emails me about twice a year. And it's usually some sort of notice that like something, isn't working on her system. We typically can fix it pretty quickly and we email it back to her. And she's a friend of mine. So like we do talk outside of that. And actually we went to the Giants game yesterday, and caught up because we don't talk.
Awesome.
We just don't talk. But her thing is, you know, I know if you're handling it, I don't have to think about it. Like that's the best testimonial that we could ever get
Yep.
is, if you guys are handling it, we don't even worry about it. We know it's going to get taken care of. We don't even have to think about it. I send you the email. I know you're going to fix it. You always send me the response, when it is fixed, that type of thing. So, that client pays us every month and they only talk to us twice a year via email. And then occasionally we actually get together and do human things. But, that's a great relationship. You know what I mean?
That's it. That's what we all want.
Yeah.
For me, it's so much more high touch. So it's a completely different type of relationship. And it's
It
something,
was high touch in the beginning, but especially when these are ongoing long-term relationships, there's just a genuine comfort level and trust, that they no longer need to be touch because we have demonstrated over time, that we can provide the service, that we're reliable, we're responsible, those types of things. So again, they just don't worry about it. And, like they send it to us, we fix it, and they go on with their day and put out other fires, and they leave, these to us. So that's great.
now you have different types of services and different types of relationships with your clients. Do you have some standardized collateral that you send when you begin a relationship? Or let's say it's a long-term client, but you start a new service with them. Do you have standardized collateral that you use to tell them what's next and to set up their expectations for the new service?
We don't, on purpose, right? Because one of the things that we think is important for our clients, and it's just how we approach this, is we realize that the solution that you need may not be the same solution as the last one we built. So for us, what's really important is to go out there with an open mind and to listen and to hear what is it that you're looking for. We'll guide you. We'll give some feedback. We'll provide some advice, but it's really about going out and understanding what you want, versus trying to sell you a solution. There's lots of people that will sell you a solution, a pre-template, all those types of things. We don't do that. That's just not our approach. Our approach is to, genuinely understand what are your pain points, and how can we address them, and how can we make those opportunities.
So help me understand this. Is the building process itself, the listening, the brainstorming together, is that a part of the onboarding process for them?
Absolutely, of course. Yeah, I mean, because a lot of times what will happen is clients will come to us with an understanding that they want something but not actually know what they need, right? so
Yes.
so for us, part of the initial onboarding is like, okay, what exactly is going on here? What exactly is the pain point? We've had this discussion before where we talk about root cause, to make sure that we're not addressing a symptom, but we're actually addressing a cause,
Right.
for the client. If the client is frustrated, I don't have enough business, that doesn't tell us anything. We need to understand, well, what's going on? Well, why is that?
Where are things dropping out?
Right. So, for us to just offer sort of a boilerplate solution to that, it doesn't work. But, we can listen, we can understand, and we'll provide feedback. We're gonna, we will do some consulting where, like, we think here's where you want to be. We think based on our other clients in a similar market, here's what's worked for them. So we will guide them. And we will guide them, obviously, based on past experience and things we've done before. But we do try to go in with a very open, let's understand what's going on before we propose a solution.
That's awesome. That and what I do is very boutique also, but I have several set solutions. I have packages that I send to people, and I do have a template that I use, but
Yeah.
every single one of them is going to end up being very different. For example, I was talking with an attorney yesterday, and he's going to take my most popular package, which, the deliverables are going to be X, Y, and Z, but the actual content that's delivered in it is going to be very different. He's working very hard on gun violence and what municipalities can do to decrease gun violence. I mean, there's not anybody I would rather work with than somebody working on some of these bigger issues. So thought leadership is what he's really looking for. And it includes several other things along the way. So yes, I used a template, but I customized it for this person and talked about, this is what we're going to be talking about. This is what we're going to do, so that I'm setting up expectations and providing a great deal of personalization along the way. So I think templates do have a function in this process. I work with a lot of people that do standardize things all the time. I work with immigration attorneys. H-1B stuff is pretty standardized for them, but every case is different. And so having a template to guide you, but then personalizing it, I think is a really wonderful hybridized way of doing an onboarding process.
And to acknowledge, there's things that we do that are part of the solution that we do the same every time, right? You know what I mean? So, when we're building a website, we always go to the ADA checkbox and like, okay, what do we need here? Right. So there are very standard elements to some of the stuff that we do. However, we don't tend to lead with those. We incorporate them because we should and we do. But there are things that we do the same every time. We always make sure there's a privacy statement. We always make sure there's a TOS page. We always make sure that the people have the ability, that it's opt-in, double opt-in, and all those types of things, which are just standard for us. So those are, in some degree, those are templates, but they're just sort of incorporated into the bigger package because for us, ultimately, what we're focused on is the messaging clear? Right? Is their value proposition coming across? Does it differentiate them from the other players in the space? And then we will build the standard components around that once we have that messaging. We'll build on the website. We will make sure there's a privacy statement. We'll make sure that people have the ability to opt out so that we're in compliance. There'll always be a cookie banner. Those are things that are just kind of standard, so they are very template-ish. But they're like, for us, those are just like standardization or compliance type of things. But we do them the same every time because, we go through the same checklist. Have we considered this? Have we considered that? Is the website ADA compliant? Those types of things.
And so you mentioned a checklist. And do you think a checklist for a client is a great onboarding tool?
Depends on the client. I mean, it kind of depends. I mean, and this is probably why we tend to approach it with, an open. Some people love checklists, right? And some people don't. So, you really need to understand your client to understand what they're going to respond to. If they're not particularly tech savvy or this is all new to them, and I send them over this long checklist, they're going to get overwhelmed, right? But if they've been doing it a while or it's just their nature to be, list type of people, sure, but you'll in having those initial conversations with them, you'll kind of figure that out. So it depends on the client. The client that's a bookkeeper loves lists because that's the nature of how they do business, right? So I can send a list and they're like, yeah, this makes absolute sense to us because that's how they think. But if I send a list over to a creative type, they're like, they don't even know where to start. And
it breaks their brains.
Yeah.
I'm going to confess, I like to check things off. It feels like something solid got done. Yeah, I love a good checklist. And I have noticed with some of my operations people or with PhDs, if I give them a checklist, it's like their whole brain calms down.
Yeah, it really depends on the individual.
But there are other
rely on them internally because, like, did we check ADA? Did we check privacy? Did we,
right?
So we have sort of those checklists internally, but whether or not we share those with the clients really is a function of the client and because a lot of our clients also it is we don't want to have to deal with this, you deal with it, and we're like, okay, we can do that. So they don't want a checklist, they just like, here's the problem, or here, you do it.
Yeah, like, okay, get a hold of me when it's done.
Or don't just do it, and if I don't have to hear about it, and it's one less thing on my plate,
and it just works.
So
So we've talked about a couple of themes already this morning, and I think one of the strongest themes in everything that both of us have said is personalization. So it depends. How many times have you said it depends this morning?
Yeah, sorry.
No, it makes a great point. And I think that personalization right now is one of the most important things that we can provide as service providers. None of us wants to have a cookie cutter solution or a boilerplate anything. I was talking with a brand new client the other day, and he said he paid $8,000 to a company to get a program to help him have posts that people don't scroll by on LinkedIn.
Yeah, how
What
did that
he
go?
what he got was a pre-recorded webinar, no interaction, no worksheets, no collateral from
Yeah.
5 years ago. Now, I'm going to tell you that in 5 weeks, the algorithms and things on LinkedIn will change, and
Yeah.
all of that information might be obsolete. And I can't even begin to tell you how upset he was about all of that. Um, so, yeah, personalization, something where there's human interaction, where there's listening, where there is a unique solution for each problem, because it, like you said, the boilerplate, the cookie cutter things, they just don't work anymore. I mean, I'm talking about branding. You dabble in branding as well.
Mm.
And it's, you know, generic is the kiss of death on LinkedIn. And websites, they're not going to come up in a Google search if they're generic in any way. So personalization is a really big one. And setting up expectations is another thing that we've been talking about, really helping people understand, this is what's going to happen and we're just going to take care of it for you, or whatever this, or this is what we're going to work on together and I'm going to hold your hand through the whole thing, whatever those expectations are. And then the other thing that you talked about a lot that I absolutely love is responsiveness. And I really think, whether it is a text or an email or a phone call or whatever is appropriate to that client, the responsiveness is really, that is a part of the ongoing onboarding.
I mean, the responsiveness is just a function of how frustrated we are when we're on the other side of the table, right? So it's like, why would we put our clients through that? Why would we? So
Yeah.
for us, it's like we treat our clients, and this is cliche, but we treat our clients the way we do want to be treated. Like, I would like someone to get back to me. I'd like someone to acknowledge that I have a problem and I'm looking for a solution and what they plan to do. Because I get the emails like, we've gotten your inquiry and someone will get back to you, and then no one ever does. So, that's very frustrating. So again, it really just comes down to, like, this is the way we would want someone to respond to this, and how, we would like someone to have helped us in a similar scenario. So, we're small enough that, we don't outsource things to foreign countries, and occasionally we show up in person and like, hey, what's going on? Which is, and we have that luxury because we're smaller and we're more of a boutique. So, and our clients appreciate that because, we have clients that we've been developing content with for 10 years. And, and when we talk to the clients, like, our business better than 90% of our staff. Because we've been working on the messaging, we've been working on the value proposition, and, with the exception typically of the CEO, and sometimes we're enlightening the CEO, but, we probably know more about the messaging of the business, maybe not the day-to-day, maybe not, the functionals, but the messaging and what, what resonates. So, what's interesting is we were on a call a couple of weeks ago, and like, it's the entire team, and they're like, well, what do you think? Like, I'm the default, like,
That right.
if it
I'm the
doesn't go
outside
past me,
vendor.
like, the team doesn't work on it, which is kind of cool. Like, we're out, an outsourced service to them, but they still depend on it, because we've been doing it a long time, and we know their business, we know the messaging and stuff like that. So, that's pretty cool.
So with those themes that I mentioned, did I miss anything that you think is a really big point?
Excuse me. No, I don't think so. I mean, I think what this all boils down to is there's a lot of people in a very crowded space trying to do the same thing. And if you can't differentiate from a value position, what your company offers, you're just going to get lost in the noise. So our job is to help you figure out what is it that you do different. And if you don't do anything different, we're going to sort of suggest you find a way to,
Well,
because
and the customer service and the onboarding could
that's
be
huge.
the way they differentiate.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I can tell you that most companies don't do customer service well. And therefore that is, it is just ripe for the picking, because if you can provide some decent customer support, you know, it, we talk about the fact that, it's cheaper to keep your client than it is to go get a new one,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Because that client that left you is probably going to tell 10 more people that don't work with you.
No, but I mean, to get a new client, I have to advertise, I have to go network, I have to do a bunch of stuff. Whereas if I can keep the ones I have happy, and keep my cash flow going, like, that's easy. I can do that.
Well, and
I
then
do and
that
go
brings
get new
us
clients, but
to,
there's a lot of work to get a new client. And then, we've all had the experience where we get a new client, and whether it's us or whether it's them, we realize quickly, yeah, it's not a great fit.
yeah,
But we've been chasing this company, depending on what your sales cycle is and how long it lasts. To get to that realization after having gone through a tremendous amount of effort is
right.
frustrating.
Yes.
And so if you have some clients and they're decent, and they're, at least they're not torturing you, do whatever you can to keep them.
And so
Some
that
clients
brings me,
torture you. Some clients need to go. Don't get me wrong. Some
yes,
of them,
yes.
and we're always reluctant to do that, but I can always assure you that,
Oh, there's
after the
benefits.
fact, we're like, oh, why didn't we
There
do
are
that sooner?
huge benefits to that. Yes.
Yeah. And
So,
I'm sure there's clients who feel the same way about us. Like, why didn't we cut them loose a long time ago? You know,
yeah,
we're not going to fit with everybody. We get that. For some people, we're the perfect solution. For some others, we're the nightmare. So, it really depends on our working relationship, our personalities, which is all things that why you want to take the time to do the onboarding, because you want to realize that, if you can, either to understand that early and cut your losses if you can, or to sort of begin, like I said, set those expectations. Like, this is how it's going to work. If that's okay with you, cool. If it's not, we may not be the right player for you.
or let's talk about it. You have opportunities there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's about setting the expectation. Let's talk about it. Like, this is how it's going to work. What do you think? Can this work for you? If it doesn't, what do you need? Can we accommodate that? Those types of things, right?
Right.
But
And
that,
for us, there may be a hard boundary, something that we
yeah,
can't do.
there's some, there's definitely lines in the sands, like, no, we're not going to do that, or no, that's not, that's a non-starter for us. And there's things for the client that are non-starters, and they're like, well, we have to have that. Like, okay, that's fine, but that's not us. um, and again, I would rather understand that and figure that out early in the relationship, because it's easier to part ways early in the relationship, like, oh, sorry, it didn't work out, versus the client that you've had for 6 years, and you're like, yeah, this ain't working anymore, and you're like, what? Like, I've been working my ass off over here, and now, like, all of a sudden it's not working. What did I miss?
Yeah, where did it go wrong?
Yeah. And maybe we did miss something, and maybe it is our fault, but it is obviously a lot more painful when it's a longer term client that you've had for a while, and you're like, what happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there may have been lots of opportunities to keep it on track, but somehow they were missed.
Yeah,
And that's unfortunate. But
it's
when it
their
gets
fault,
to a
our fault. It
certain,
could be anybody's fault.
right,
Who knows? But
but when it gets to a certain point, it is just better to cut your losses. So I'm going to start wrapping things up and really talking about some of the ROI for both customer service and for onboarding. You know, you and I are both service providers, and we talked a lot about, it's better to keep a client. It's better to work with a client and keep them happy than other options that are available. And one of the things that we live on is referrals. And so let's talk a little bit about how onboarding and customer service sets you up for referrals.
yeah, I mean, if we do a good job, I mean, we will typically conclude some form of onboarding with, do you know anybody who needs these types of services? Do you know anybody we should be talking to? And if we've had a positive relationship, they're usually pretty happy to make that kind of referral. You know what I mean? Or at least, like, keep us top of mind should one of those opportunities present themselves. But we also, make sure that we offer them the same, reciprocal offer. Like, what can I do to help you? What kind of clients are you looking for? If I do come across somebody that needs bookkeeping, let me know what's your ideal client, who do you like to work with. I had we have dabbled in the cannabis space off and on, and the market's changed considerably over the last couple of years. So I had an opportunity for a bookkeeper, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not touching cannabis." You know what I mean? So it was clear that while we were happy to make the referral, it wasn't the right one for them. So we
Right.
found another home for it. So understanding like what is a good referral for them. That's
Yeah.
I think in referral marketing and networking, that's probably the thing that people miss is, we are tasked with making these referrals. So we're like, make the referral, make the referral. And then what a lot of, we don't understand whether that was a good referral.
Right.
I've had people who've made lots of referrals to us, of which none of them have closed because it wasn't a good fit. And yet they
Yes.
keep making referrals to us. And I'm like, hey, like we don't do that. We don't want to do that. And while we appreciate you thinking of us, these aren't good fits. These are never going to be people that we want to work with or that want to work with us. We know the types of clients that work with us. And, so we're like, as much as we appreciate you making the referrals, don't make that referral because it's not, doesn't help anybody. But in their mind, like they're happy they made a referral. Like I made a referral. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
And I
And so,
think the most important part is to like, follow up afterward. Like, was that a good referral? And if not, why not? And to understand, because we do get in this mindset. Anyone who's done referral marketing knows like, oh, I got to make the referral. I got to make a referral. Like, you're like digging up referrals from wherever just to make a referral. That doesn't necessarily result in business.
right. Right. And educating your referral partners is an important piece of that. The follow up, the follow through,
Yeah,
for
because I
sure.
can tell you that most people will make a referral and be done. Like and like they've checked the box, they're very happy. They're on their list, they've got something done and finished. But I'm telling you that's like half the job. Because you really want to know is like, was that a good one? Did that work? Was if it didn't, what did I miss? To really sort of have that ongoing discussion where like, I would rather have three referrals that I can close than 20 that don't go anywhere. Like, what's the
And that
point of
takes a
getting
lot
20
of time.
referrals if I can't do anything with them?
And, I would say that the people that are working with you on an ongoing basis probably have a better understanding of what is a good referral and what isn't a good referral than somebody who doesn't know you as well.
Well, I mean, there's an onus on both of us, right? There's an onus on the person who received the referral to give feedback and say, thank you very much, but no. You know what I mean? And then the onus on, but a lot of people don't want to do that because they're like, this person is trying to make a referral to me. I'm not gonna,
Yes.
I'm not going to rain on their parade by telling them, I appreciate the fact they tried to make a referral and maybe they'll get lucky next time. But so then the other onus is on the person making the referral to like, hey, how did that work out? Was that okay? What do and you're like, it was okay, but we ended up sending them somewhere else because we don't really do that kind of thing. So it's incumbent upon both the referrer and the referee, I think that's right, to to check in after, like, just making the referral, it doesn't mean you're done. Right. Check in
Right.
after the fact and like, how'd that go? Was it, if it wasn't right, what do I need to focus on? What is the right kind of referral for you? And to give that feedback to your referral partners as well, either in giving or receiving referrals.
Right. So, just to wrap things up in a nice,
Been
neat
trying to
bow,
do that for the last 10 minutes. I'm not letting you, huh?
for, so onboarding is definitely a gift that could keep on giving, for
Absolutely.
sure,
Yeah.
because it helps set up expectations for communication, for what's next, for how I should get a hold of you, for all kinds of things. The responsiveness is a big, big piece of the whole onboarding process. Are you going to be there when I need you? That kind of thing is something that really builds confidence in this whole customer relationship. And then just really educating your clients about who in their network might be a good referral for you. Because if you can keep your clients using great customer service and onboarding, and they give you occasional fantastic referrals, you've got a sustainable business.
I mean, the only thing I'm going to caution you on is that, setting those expectations. So if you go above and beyond in the onboarding, and that's not the level of service
Yep.
that you can sustain, you're going to set yourself up for failure, right? So
Yes.
be aware of that. We've talked about that before. Is like, this is
Yes.
what we offer. This is the level. And I know that when we first win a new client, we like, oh, well, let's do everything to make them happy, right? So we're of that mindset, which is a good mindset, but it's a dangerous mindset if it's not something that we can sustain.
Right.
Because as soon as we revert back to what we think is normal, the new client will perceive that as, oh, like the service has dropped off. Like now, it's not as good as it used to be. So one word of caution is make sure that when you're going above and beyond in that onboarding process, it's something that you can sustain. Because if you can't sustain it, don't do it.
Right, right, because then you're setting up the wrong expectation. And there's generally three times when people go above and beyond. If you're a new practitioner, you're all happy that you got a client. When you get, if you land a whale, that's
Yeah.
another time. Or if you've had a really big dry spell and you just got a nice client. Those are three times when it's tempting to go above and beyond, but you really need to be realistic.
And we've seen the whale kill small businesses so many times, right? Because there's no one client should be more than one X percentage of your business, and you land the whale, and then all of a sudden this client is like 80% of your business, if not more, right? So then you're totally beholden to this client. So be careful with the whales. They're great because they write big checks, but they can kill your business if you're not careful.
Very good advice. So anything you want to
I love to
add?
bring it down on a down note. You know what I mean? That's just my job, apparently.
Well, we need to be reminded of some of these big mistakes. They're tempting. They're tempting.
Yeah.
But yeah, anytime you get to the point where one client is 80% of your business, oh my gosh, that's red flag, red flag, red
Dangerous,
flag.
right? Yeah. Yeah. And when you're in a new business starting up, that's inevitable, right? Because you don't
Yeah.
have many clients. But it's really something that as a new business you want to work to get past. That
Yes.
that this big client isn't your only client, that you're not dependent upon it. Because the big client, if they are 80% of your business, you can't fire them, regardless of how horrible they are, right?
Right.
Because that's 80% of your business.
Yeah. And businesses shift over time. So, that first client may not be a super long term, like 10 years. It may not be a long term client. You may shift someplace else.
Yeah, but just look at your product, your client mix, and if it's about risk management. If you have concentrations, whether it be in a single client, whether it be in an industry, we talked about a little bit about cannabis, and I realized you're trying to wrap up, and I know I'm not letting you, but I will bring this to conclusion very shortly. But we had put a large percentage of our efforts into the cannabis industry. And as the cannabis industry sort of struggled, we had to reevaluate how much of our business we wanted in that industry because of the challenges they were having.
Yeah.
But it was really about like, this is a risk assessment for our business. Like, do we want this type of concentration in an industry that's struggling?
Yeah.
And our conclusion was, for us, that was too much of a risk for us, and that we chose to diversify the industries that we're in away from the concentration in cannabis.
Right. Right. And that's excellent advice too. I mean, there's never been a more disruptive time for different industries right now. And so risk assessment is something that we need to be on top of all the time. It's an ongoing
Sounds like a good
process.
topic for a future podcast, huh?
Excellent. Yes, that sounds fantastic. Well, Mike, thanks for a fantastic discussion. And do you want to talk about risk assessment next week?
Sure, we can talk about risk. I think risk is a big discussion, so we might have to break it up into a couple pieces. But we can begin the discussion next week about risk. And
And
sort
I
of,
think this is a really good time to talk about risk. As
Absolutely.
I don't know, I've heard a couple people say the word post-pandemic, and I'm not sure I'm ready to say that yet. I mean,
Hmm.
can
Our
we ever?
downtown suggests otherwise, but okay, yeah,
Anyway, it should be a great discussion next week.
great.
Thanks, Mike.
As always, pleasure chatting, and we will see all of you next week.